G'day guys, Will here, welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be talking about the reasons why I've chosen to build a expensive racing simulator as opposed to just buying a real life race car or track car. Now there's been a lot of comments on my videos recently and I've kind of been a little bit overly defensive, I think, in some of my answers, simply because, you know, first of all, I get sick of answering the same question over and over again, but I think it's important to acknowledge that it is a legitimate question that deserves a proper answer here. So this video is going to get a little bit personal, and there's some very, very deeply personal reasons why I've actually chosen to do this as opposed to just buying a real life race car, which might not make a whole lot of sense to you right now, but by the end of the video, it should make a lot of sense. So to put this all in perspective, you know, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have received a lot of the gear that I'm using here, you know, for free from various companies in exchange for, you know, doing review videos and, you know, sharing the equipment with you guys. But that said, I have still spent close to $20,000 Australian on this setup. And that also includes the cost of the PC as well, which I set up originally without even thinking about doing sim racing. I set it up to do, you know, video editing and stuff like that, and also using for work. So that is included in the price as well. But all in all, I have spent close to about $20,000 Australian on the gear that I'm using in these videos. And that is legitimately enough to buy a very, very decent track car. Now, a lot of you guys that have been following the channel for a while now would actually have seen that I actually did used to have a real life track car, as well as a very, very nice daily driver car as well. I had a BMW M235i, which I'd done a little bit of work on, as well as an MX-5 track car that I built and actually did a video series on building that car. And before that, I had my Project BRZ car as well, which we supercharged, did, you know, full exhaust, coilovers, and a bunch of different mods. And that was actually the reason why I started this channel in the first place, was covering the build of that Project BRZ car. So it's not that I'm not a real car enthusiast or anything like that. There's actually some really good reasons that boil down to some very, very personal things for me as to why I've done this. So the first thing that you need to understand is that I have a very severe anxiety disorder. Now, that might sound a little bit weird, and, you know, how is that relevant in the slightest? But one of the things that people that don't suffer from anxiety don't understand is that anxiety isn't just a feeling of, you know, being scared of something, like, you know, there's a thunderstorm or something like that and you get scared and then you get over it and it's dealt with. It actually affects the way you enjoy things and the way you interact with the world around you day to day. So for me, for example, I did a good example is I did a massive around the world holiday with my wife about 7 years ago now. And because I was so anxious about being so far outside of my comfort zone, I didn't actually enjoy the experience of going on the holiday until I actually got back and started to, you know, reflect on it once once the perceived danger was over. And, you know, so that's difficult for people to understand because, you know, why wouldn't you enjoy going on a massive round the world trip? And, you know, I went and visited NASA, I went and visited CERN, I did all these cool things, but I was so anxious at the time that I couldn't really enjoy those experiences until the perceived danger was gone, and then I was able to enjoy them retrospectively. And it's very much the same with driving and, you know, racing and track cars and things like that for me as well. I have spent a lot of time on the track before, but what I found was that because I was so anxious about crashing or hurting myself or something like that, and, you know, irrationally so, it's an irrational fear. It's not just the normal sort of level of anxiety that you feel around, oh, I need to be a little bit careful, I don't want to crash here. I was, you know, because I was so nervous about it, I actually didn't enjoy the experience of going to a track and driving my car around the track. And not only that, but I never really pushed my limits either, because I was so scared of hurting myself or damaging the car that, you know, I was always way too reserved. I would never really push myself to the limits. And therefore, the enjoyment factor wasn't there for multiple reasons. It wasn't there because I wasn't pushing myself, and therefore I wasn't really exploring my own and the car's capabilities. But I also, you know, wasn't enjoying the experience because I was so scared. And, you know, that probably sounds silly to a lot of people, but that's a reality for me. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching this that might suffer from anxiety in various different degrees would probably, you know, that'd probably resonate with you. You'd probably understand that. So that is probably the first big reason why. And obviously, you know, with a simulator, that's not a problem because there isn't any real danger. You can really push yourself, and you can start to explore the limits of grip with the car. You can explore your own abilities and stuff. And it's, you know, it's not the same as driving a real life car around a real life track. And I think a big part of the reason why that is because there isn't a danger there. But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it. So that is probably the first and probably the biggest reason why I've done this, is because it's a way for me to actually, enjoy racing a car and enjoy going to a track and being able to do those things without having to, deal with the massive anxiety that I feel when I go to a real track. So that was actually the reason, or one of the big reasons why I sold the MX-5 track car that I built, is because I just simply never prioritized going to the track and, spending time on the track with it, because I felt so much anxiety that I just didn't enjoy it in the first place. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Now, the next reason is basically just because of family circumstances. When I originally built my Project BRZ car, one of the main reasons why I did that is because my wife and I had actually been told that we couldn't have any kids. And so I kind of thought, well, if I can't have kids, then I may as well just build a race car. So I kind of got right into it. And originally I started the channel around the build of that Project BRZ car, never expecting that the channel would grow this big and that people would actually be interested in what I was doing. It was actually a way for me to push myself outside of my comfort zone and challenge myself and actually deal with my anxiety to a large extent as well. But, I built that car. I never really ended up taking it to the track a whole lot. And the reason for that was that right before I took delivery on that car, we actually found out that my wife was pregnant, which was absolutely fantastic news. But at the same time, I was kind of thinking, oh shit, I've just spent all of this money on a race car and now I'm not going to get to use it. So I did end up persevering with the project. I did end up doing all the things that I wanted to do with that car, but I never really ended up taking it to the track, and it actually ended up being a daily driver for me, which was a little bit ridiculous. So I ended up selling it because, nobody wants to drive a track car every day in traffic. It just doesn't make any sense. So I ended up selling that car, buying the BMW M235i that you guys would have seen in some of my earlier videos, doing a little bit of work on that as well. But then obviously having two young kids and, a wife and adult responsibilities like, multiple jobs, multiple businesses that I run as well, I can't just be going to the track all the time and, enjoying those kinds of things. I do have family responsibility, and I also, I don't think that it's fair to just be pissing off to the track every weekend and, not spending time with my kids and family. And also, the danger is a factor there as well. I don't want to be doing something that's really dangerous and risking, my kids losing their dad because of my selfish desire to want to take a car to a track. So that is a factor for me as well. And a simulator is something that I can enjoy pretty much all the time. I can jump in it for half an hour in the evening. I can do it here and there, and it's not costing me a whole bunch of money every single time I want to use it. Now, another thing that a lot of people don't realize is just how expensive it is to actually run a race car, not only in terms of maintenance and things like that. Fuel is expensive. Every time you go to the track, you have to replace the oil. You generally have to replace your tires, your brake pads, things like that as well. And you also have to pay to actually go to a track. So it's about $300 to $400 to even go to a track day here in Australia. And it really does add up. So what I found is when I was regularly going to a track back before I was married and had kids, it was costing me close to $1,000 every single time, which is not a small amount of money. So that is definitely a factor as well. And obviously compare that to having a simulator. It doesn't really cost you anything other than the cost of, wear and tear on parts and things like that, as well as the cost of electricity and buying new tracks and things like that. But, obviously it doesn't even come close to comparing to the cost of running a real life track car. Now, convenience is also another major factor for me as well. I live at least a 2-hour drive away from the nearest track as well, which means that it's a big deal going to the track for the day. It's not something that you can just buzz on down to the track, do a few laps, and then come home again. It's a day's exercise for me. And what I used to actually do is I used to book 2 days and then go and stay somewhere close to the track for the night, enjoy the track for 2 days, and then come home again. But so not really something that you can do, regularly. And also that limits the amount of variety as well. Obviously, if there's only one track nearby, you can only ever really do that track. Whereas with a simulator, you can do pretty much any track anywhere in the world in any car. And I think what people don't realize these days is that sims have become so realistic that you genuinely can actually feel the characteristics of the car. And that's one of the things that I've been learning recently driving in the MX-5 Cup in iRacing, is that once you actually learn to work with the car's characteristics and use the weight of the car to sort of drift it around corners and things like that, you really do become a lot faster. And what I'm finding is that the exhilaration of actually getting a good lap in the simulator is very, very close to what you have in real life. And removing the danger factor, I actually find for me with my anxiety that I'm actually able to enjoy it a little bit more than driving around a real life track, because I really am pushing my limits and, enjoying it for every single thing that it's worth, rather than sort of always being a little bit reserved as well. So obviously the cost is a big factor. The convenience is a big factor. The fact that I do suffer from anxiety as well is a big factor for me. And I think that's probably the biggest one. Now, another important factor for me as well is that I really am enjoying being a part of the sim racing community as well. I'm finding that sim racers are really, really friendly people that are, you know, much more positive, I think, than car enthusiasts tend to be. I found there's always a lot of negativity in the car enthusiast circles, and I'm not trying to talk badly against car enthusiasts by any means. I love cars myself, and I've been deeply involved in that community in the past, not so much these days, but you know, there's a lot of judgmentalness in car enthusiasts. You know, people build their cars for different reasons. Some people just want them to sound good or look good or, you know, be low or faster out of track or sex spec or whatever. Whereas with sim racing, everybody's kind of in it for the same reasons. So fundamentally, you get a lot less judgmentalness going on. But also, there's a lot less negativity in general. People are very, very helpful and friendly and actually genuinely wanting to help each other out. And I think because the sim racing community is relatively small compared to the car enthusiast community, people are genuinely excited when new people come into the community. They want to share their passion. And I guess there's almost this factor of people wanting people to realize what they realize, that sim racing is actually something that is really, really enjoyable and really exciting and fun. And so there's this genuine excitement when new people come into the community that just really isn't there with car enthusiasts, I don't think. Probably because it's much more of a, you know, a minority group rather than a majority group. There's a lot less sim racers than there are car enthusiasts in general. So that has been another factor as well. But all in all, I'm very happy that I've made the decision to get involved in sim racing more deeply. And obviously, I'm still a newbie at this. I'm still learning. I'm still improving my skills, but I'm having an awesome time. So I hope that helps you guys to understand a little bit better the reasons why I've chosen to build an expensive sim rather than having a track car. Now, I have had track cars before in the past. I have enjoyed them, but I've got to say, you know, I am enjoying having a sim a lot more, given my circumstances, my anxiety, the fact that I have young kids and a wife that I have to, you know, be around for as well. Having a sim is something that I'm getting a lot more enjoyment out of than having a track car that spends most of its time sitting in the garage. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it insightful. I know that this one's probably going to get a couple of people triggered. A lot of people are going to think that I'm an idiot or that I got no idea what I'm talking about, and that's perfectly fine. But I hope that for those people that are genuinely interested in the reasons why this has been insightful for you and that you've learned something. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.